Welcome to So Much Fun. I'm Colleen Murphy and I teach sewing. Today I want to talk to you about a recent trip I took to Liberty, Kentucky. I don't know if you've ever heard of Liberty, Kentucky. It's a very small town just south of Danville, Kentucky. But in Liberty, Kentucky, there is a Bernina dealership. The name of it is Quilters Trunk. People say to me, well, where do you go to buy your machines or get your machine serviced? I go to Liberty, Kentucky. Now this trip takes about between 2 and 2.5 hours, but is well worth the trip. It's well worth the trip because I have learned that not all dealers are the same. And I have been more than satisfied with the Quilters Trunk quilt shop, and the owner of that shop is named Michael Johnson, than I have any other dealer throughout the years. And to give you a little background on this, I started buying Bernina back in the mid-1980s. And since that time, I have purchased 14 Bernina products. 11 of them are sewing machines and 3 are sergers. And I have dealt with 6 different dealers. So I think I have a pretty good knowledge and experience base to be able to say, this guy knows what he's doing and he's a very honest person. So for me, this has always been a very positive experience. I also want to bring up the fact that of all the machines that I have purchased, I did have one that gave me trouble from the very beginning. So this is a good example of why I'm so happy with him. The store that sold me the machine really did not have the technical knowledge to know how to service it. And for the period of warranty, which was 5 years, I kept going to that dealership and they couldn't fix it. And so I made multiple trips to this shop. Then when the warranty had expired, I was free really to go to any dealership I wanted to. And I was given Michael's name, and this has probably been about 7 years ago. So I took the machine to him and told him the story about the machine, how it had never worked right from the very beginning. And he said he'd had over 20 years experience working with Bernina, and he'd only had to return 2 machines to the factory. And he'd always been able to solve a problem that it might have had. Well, my machine became number 3. Well, when he did that, he did not charge me any more than what he had to pay to ship the machine back to the factory to get it repaired. When it came back, it did work, but I was never really happy with it at that point. And then at some point later, I did trade it in for a different model. But he has the knowledge base to know how to address an issue with a machine and to repair it. He doesn't pretend that he knows. He does know. And anytime I need assistance, I can pick up the phone and call him, and he can talk to me and most of the time it's something very simple that I can do myself. You can understand now why I go to Liberty, Kentucky for my Bernina sewing machines. This past summer, as almost every year, Bernina will introduce a new machine, more than one machine. And the top of the line machine this year is the 990, which is a really amazing machine. But it also costs $23,000, and I am not in the market for that. I do have enough machines that I don't need the features that a 990 offers. But they also had a 735 that they were offering, a special. And that got my attention. And it's really not for me. It's for my students. One of the services that I like to offer my students is the experience of using different brands. I know that when you're a beginner or you haven't been sewing very long, you don't know what machine you want. You don't know enough about the features that a machine can offer. So I want to have people have that privilege of using different machines and not just a low-end machine. We have two Elnas, a Janome, a Juki, a Viking, and four Berninas. So when you come to a class, you have a choice as to what you would like to use. Well, this summer, I decided that I had a machine that I did not like, and it was not one that I wanted my students to have to use. So I wanted to get rid of it. And when Bernina announced that one of their new products that they were offering was the 735, I decided I wanted to get that. Again, not so much for me, but for my students. Now this 735 we had a choice of 3 packages. One package would have been an embroidery module. I already had 2 embroidery modules, so I didn't need that. Another package was for quilters with all of these templates that they could use to do free motion quilting on their sewing machine. I have a long arm. I don't need that. Then the third package was a serger. That got my interest because I also had a serger that I had had for several years, and I felt like it was time to let that go. So my trip to Quilters Trunk was to pick up the new 735 and the serger, which is number 460. So we made this trip a couple of weeks ago, and like all the previous trips, it's an all-day project. We usually leave around 9 or so in the morning. We will either go directly to the shop if it is a service problem, talk to him about that. And I should back up to say that I always call ahead of time, and we come up with a date and time that works for both of us. And so I know when I go there, he's going to be there, and he's going to do whatever is needed for my trip. So we usually get there between 11 and 11:30, go to the shop if we're taking a machine to be serviced, leave it there. He knows what needs to be done. Then we go and have lunch, and we go to a place called Bread of Life. Now, Liberty, Kentucky is pretty much a Mennonite community. And actually the family that owns Quilters Trunk, they are Mennonites. And so when we go to Bread of Life, that's run by a Mennonite family. I think there's even a Mennonite school nearby. But it seems that everyone in Casey County eats at Bread of Life. It's quite an experience. It's all home cooking, and you have a buffet, and it's like $12.99. And we just enjoy the good home cooking and the experience of being there. So after we have lunch, and I say we because most of the time one of my students will go with me. So we'll go there, and then we go back to the shop. And by that time, the machine is ready, and then we're ready to come home. So in one day, I can go down there and get my machine repaired or serviced and come home. We leave around 9, we get back between 4 or 5. So this particular day was not to have anything serviced, it was to pick up the 735. And I have just a brief video of Michael talking to me. He actually spent about 2 hours going over the features of the machine to make sure that, I was aware of the different settings and whatever I needed to know about the machine.
Start.
Okay.
Okay.
All right. So one thing I did not talk about earlier, okay, is your common menu, okay?
Oh.
So down here they have added one more tab.
Uh-huh.
These are the last stitches that we have visited, okay?
Oh.
Or they did when they did a sew off, okay?
All right.
So as you go through here and you choose different stitches that you sew,
Yeah.
and if you sew this at all
Yeah.
and you stop, it is now going to show up in your history.
Oh.
Okay, this is kind of like a running history.
So you can see why I recommend Quilters Trunk. In one day, I can have my machine serviced. And in that day, I've had a nice lunch, a nice ride, and I know that the machine is going to perform the way I need it to perform. He has an extensive knowledge of the machine, and he's a very honest person. And of all the dealers that I've ever dealt with, he by far is the most exceptional one I've ever known. I want to make sure you understand that I do not have any financial ties to this company. I'm not being paid to say it. I did ask Michael if it was all right if I did this, and he said it was okay. But as far as being compensated, I am not. But I know what it's been like to have dealt with dealers that have not had a knowledge base like he does and provide the service that he provides. He also has Baby Lock. He's a Baby Lock dealer as well as a Bernina dealer. So if you have a need to have a machine serviced or you're interested in buying one, I highly recommend him.